What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Team Big Plays. So for today we are doing our monthly Prank Kids check-in. Changed things up a little bit since my last deck list, which is another reason why I'm making the video, because the ban list came out, which kind of hurt the deck list a little bit. Plus, if I'm correct, I forgot to throw in one of my polys. This time everything is all together. We got my side deck is completely built. Same thing with extra and main. So yeah, let's just get straight into our monster count. So for our monsters, we run triple copies of everything. That's still standard, at least until they release a 5th Prank Kids monster. 3 copies of Prank Kids Lampsies, 3 copies of Prank Kids Dropsies, 3 copies of Prank Kids Fansies, and 3 copies of Prank Kids Roxies. So if you do not know, or for those starting Prank Kids, the way Prank Kids function is that when they're sent to the graveyard from hand or field as fusion or link material for another Prank Kids monster, they activate different effects in the grave that'll allow you to special summon another Prank Kids monster. So for example, Prank Kids Fansies. If this card is sent to the graveyard as material for the fusion or link summon of a Prank Kids monster, you can send one Prank Kids card from your deck to your graveyard, except Prank Kids Fansies, and then you can special summon one Prank Kids monster from your deck, except Prank Kids Fansies. So they all have effects like this. So Fansies is a Foolish Burial for the deck. Roxies is a banish one card from your hand to draw one. Dropsies helps you gain 1,000 life points. Lampsies burns your opponent for 500 life points. And then they each special summon one Prank Kids monster from the deck that is not themselves. So this gimmick in general allows you to just push the board with tons of monsters. And if you draw any 2 with a poly, that's just full combo. And that can easily get you, I'm going to update a little bit, into a Toad and a Dweller and a Bow Wow and be able to go for your Battle Butler next turn. Or can get you into Toad and number 106 and give you 3 negates. Easy. So yeah, that's going to be our Prank Kids monsters. Move on to our spicy tech. So this is kind of what I changed up. So to counteract the fact that terraforming got sent to 1, and because of that, I also took out set rotation. 1, because I no longer run Mystic Mine in this build, and 2, because, well, I only run 3 field spells. Set rotation burns through them, and I don't know, I would just rather run this. 3 copies of Planet Pathfinder. So what this does is you contribute this card, add 1 field spell card from your deck to your hand. So it's literally a walking terraforming. So you might be thinking, well, what if I don't want to give them a normal summon? Because, Prank Kids do need their normal summon. Well, in that case, then you don't need to use Planet Pathfinder. You can normal summon your Prank Kids monster, go through normal combo, keep that in your hand for next turn, or just banish it off of Prank Kids Roxies. But other than that, I think it's very versatile. If you don't have it and you have King of the Swamp, you could run King of the Swamp instead. It's also a good placeholder. I personally prefer 3 Planet Pathfinder in case I ever do decide to run Mystic Mine or Magical Midfield Breaker, for example. So, and then for our hand traps, I run 2 Ogre, 2 Veiler. Veiler just to take care of Thunder, Orcus, Sky Striker, in general, it's your monster negation. Ogre for same thing. Ogre Yugioh, no arrows. Bada bing, bada boom, you win. Striker, you hit that multi-roll. Hit them with Roaster just in case they bring it back off of Hercules base. So pretty much good stuff. I would recommend maybe instead running like 3 Ash. Or you could run 3 Gamma and then have this be a driver. So that's always up for debate. That's all obviously personal preference. Feel free though, if you have any other changes or recommendations, list them down in the comments below. We are going to move on to our spell cards next. Alright, so before we start our spell and trap sections, we only run 2 traps, I want to give a huge shout out to number 1, my subscribers. We just hit 70 subscribers. We're getting close to that 100 mark. I really want to be able to hit that by the end of August, because then we are I personally am 1/10 of the way to my goal for this year, that by this time next year I want to have 1,000 subscribers so I can start getting monetized. Even though, you know, probably half of them are going to get taken down by that point anyways. But I do really want to give a huge thank you to everybody who viewed my videos. We just hit our second video to hit over 1,000 likes. So thank you very much to everybody who is willing to give their time to watch them, and I really hope that they helped you out as much as I can. And thank you to all of my subscribers. I really appreciate it. So yeah, I'm not gonna keep going with the mushy stuff because I know you want to see the deck profile. So let's just get into these spells. So for your fusion spells, 2 Prankid's Pranks. This is the only one that's like fusion spell, but it's not a fusion spell. You discard a Prankid's monster or card. You discard a Prankid's card, special summon a Prankid's token. And then at the end of the turn, you can shuffle 3 Prankid's cards from your graveyard into your deck. This card's really important, especially if you run out of the trap card in your graveyard. I'll go into that later, because you want to keep recycling resources. This deck can burn through your monsters in relatively quick. I give it at least 3 turns tops before you need to either activate the trap in your graveyard or get this on field. Plus, the token is nice because if you draw a fusion spell and a Prankid's monster, you don't have another Prankid's monster, you don't have Planet Pathfinder, you don't have the field spell to be able to get to what you need. You can just discard the fusion spell or any other Prankid's spell card that you can't use. Or if you happen to have 2 Prankid's monsters in this, discard whatever you don't need, get the token, normal summon, go off into your combos. Then we run 3 copies of Instant Fusion. This card is Spice. It allows you to go into your Prankid's Rocket Ride to extend your combos. It gives you a material because you can activate this, normal summon a monster. You got combo right there. There's just a lot of things Instant Fusion can do, and if you even wanted to, you could run like Millennium Eyes Restrict or Thousand Eyes Restrict just to get around hand traps, you know? There's just a lot Instant Fusion can do for this deck, and I think the more targets that end up coming out in the future, this card's going to get even more busted, especially, you know, we have Link Brains Pack 3 coming out, so who knows what support this deck may or may not get, and I really hope they do give it some support, though, because trust me, it needs it. Then we have 3 copies of Prankid's Pandemonium. This is the Prankid's Fusion spell. It's a quick play. You can only use it during the main phase. Fusion summon 1 Prankid's Fusion monster from your extra deck, using monsters that you control are in your hand as material. But it does lock you into Prankid, so that's the only downfall. But if you draw this in your opening hand, even though you can't go like Toad 106, you can still amass a huge board that just allows you to go Roaster, Battle Butler, blow up everything your opponent has. So then 3 polys, that's pretty standard, allows you fusion summon. For our for our field spells, we run 1 copy of Terraforming, because that's the only thing that's legal. Obviously you can't run 2, even though I'd love to. To search your field spells, which your field spells are pretty much utility for this deck. Your toolbox is your field spells, whether it's Mystic Mine, if you want to run that. I'll still probably show Mystic Mine combo in my next video, just, you know, if that would be something that, you know, you'd want to run. Then you can also search your fusion spells, poly, by searching out Fusion Recycling Plant, which allows you to discard a card, get your polys to get rid of whatever you need. Then at the end of the turn, you can actually add 1 card to use as fusion material from your graveyard back to your hand. Then you have 2 of these. This is kind of like Trickstar Light Stage, except it's a hard once per turn. It searches any Prankid's monster. And then if you summon a Fusion Prankid's monster, all monsters you control gain 500 attack. And then if you summon a Prankid's Link monster, all monsters your opponent controls lose 500 attack. This card's really good for chain blocking. You put this at the end of your chain. Obviously, you know, they're not going to be able to Ash. Well, they can't Ash, they can't Ogre, they can still Veiler. But they can't really do anything else as far as hand traps go against this. They can't Gamma your stuff. Then you run, for our utility cards, 3 Called by the Grave. That's pretty standard, as much as this deck can play around it. Hand traps and such. Call by the Grave is still such a good card. And then not only that, you can still hit cards from your opponent's graveyard that might be useful to them, even if they don't have a hand trap for you. For example, Sky Striker matchup, you want to hit like if they're going for Utopia double, Call by the Grave, get rid of the Ray. That's pretty standard. You can get rid of their Kagari. Orcus, you want to hit, like, you hit Symbol Skeleton, you know, then they kind of run out of that. They can only go one long Girasu, they can't make Bomber. And then, you know, just random targets in general. Not quite sure Endanger Thunder what would be the best target. Obviously, that would be a card you could side out then. You could also replace this, though, for DD Crow, just because I know in this format there's still a lot of cards that activate in Grave that, you know, you might not be able to call by the Grave. 1 Reasoning and 1 for 1. So the logic behind Reasoning is all your Prank Kids monsters at different levels, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So even if they call a level, you have a 1 in 4 chance, or well, they have a 1 in 4 chance of calling it, and that's, you know, obviously not if you hit a hand trap. And then 1 for 1 is pretty much like Prank Kids Pranks. If you have 2 Prank Kids monsters in your hand, you can do this, and then this substitutes for Poly. You still have full combo. The only difference is you use your normal summon for it. Then for our trap cards, if you want to run Infinite Impermanence, like instead of Veiler or Ogre, you can. Obviously, I don't have it, or I'd probably run it. But 2, Prank Kids Plan. 2 is necessary. I see people run 1, and the only deck that I see 1 working in is the Invoked version. Because other than that, a lot of the times, at least for one of my combos, you end up setting this and a Pandemonium. So you want to have 2, because if you activate this or you draw it and you don't have this one, you're not going to be able to recycle your resources in mass. Plus, from Grave, you can banish it and make your opponent's monster lose 100 attack. For each Prank Kids card from your grave, you shuffle back into your deck. Like I said, recycling. So you really do need 2 of these. Plus, you can always discard it off of Pranks if you happen to draw it in your hand. So 2 is your prime number. Please run 2 unless you're running Invoked, because then you really only need 1, 2. It's just going to be a brick anyways, and you're not necessarily going to be recycling as many resources. So that is it for our spell and trap lineup. We will now move on to our extra deck. Alright, so for our extra deck, we're going to start off with our fusion monsters. You run 2 copies of Prank Kids Rocket Ride, and 2 copies of Weather Washer, 1 copies of Prank Kids Battle Butler. So obviously Battle Butler is one of the things that make the deck great, and so is Rocket Ride, and so is Washer. They're all good. So what Rocket Ride does is you contribute this card, special summon 2 Prank Kids cards from your graveyard. So if you use this in conjunction, obviously, with Instant Fusion, it's one of your targets you can go just to get it out on the field as material. Or you can combo extend, activate Instant Fusion, get Rocket Ride, get 2 more monsters out from your grave, or you poly, at least the main combos, you take 2 Prank Kids monsters, poly, go into Rocket Ride, special summon 2. It also has an effect that says when this card is summoned, you can allow it to lose 1,000 attack, and it can attack your opponent directly this turn. So that is good in itself. 1 for time. You make Rocket Ride in time, attack direct. That combined with Lamp Seas, burn your opponent for 5, can pretty much mean game, especially in worlds where, you know, sudden death, you do damage, you win. So Rocket Ride is really, really good. The only downfall is monsters you summon from the grave cannot attack for that turn. But obviously, if you're going to special summon from grave anyways, you're either going to use them for their effects, or you're just going to link them off. So yeah, then, like I said, you can use it then chain link, lose 1,000 attack, then you still have your monsters, and even if they're going to Veiler Rocket Ride anyways, then, like, you still protect your monsters from Ash, which is what you want to do in general. Because that's the card people will most often use their hand traps on, though it's not the card they should. I'll bring that up when we get into our link monsters. So, 2 copies of Prank Kids Weather Washer. This does the exact same thing as Rocket Ride, except on your opponent's turn. And instead of losing 1,000 attack, the monsters in special summon cannot be destroyed by battle. You can summon anyone except for Prank Kids Fusion monsters. That's pretty standard. Makes sense, because if you could do this and then special summon Battle Butler back after using it, use it twice. This deck would be good if, like, it's good, don't get me wrong. It's like tier 2, maybe tier 1.5. But, like, if it didn't have stuff like that, tier 1, easy. So, one of the things probably the biggest thing that makes this deck so good and alluring is this absolute unit of a fusion monster called Prankit's Battle Butler. This thing is a walking Raigeki. So you might be thinking, well, you know, people don't use Raigeki because this is a very first turn heavy format. And if you even use Raigeki, you're putting it in your side deck. But this is a quick effect. So this is something that you can make going first and be able to just nuke your opponent's board. Because, you know, if Raigeki was a quick effect, evenly, you know, people would be using it. And, you know, obviously with evenly, they do. So quick effect, you tribute this card, destroy all monsters your opponent controls. But if your opponent's card, monsters, spell traps, etc., sends it to the graveyard, you get to special summon any monster from your graveyard. That is insanely useful. Let's say you, because this is in the side deck, you cycle, right? So you did that last turn. You didn't really open up the best for a comeback play. You couldn't really kill them off, but you can make this, and they destroy it, right? Special summon Scythe back. They make Cerberus, destroy this, special summon Scythe. What are you gonna do? Nothing. But then too, that can also be used for stuff like Boral Sword Dragon, Borload, Avermax, even getting back out like Rocket Ride or Weather Watcher. It's just insane utility. Plus it's a Thunder, so you could also potentially use Thunder Dragon Fusion to make this card, which is definitely something that I'm considering right. Anyways, consider that. XZ monsters. So you run Abyss Dweller and Totally Awesome. You can also take out Abyss Dweller for number 106, which can detach one material during other player's turn, negate one monster effect on the field while this card is facing on the field. So it's essentially 2 monster negates. You know, obviously depending on the matchup, that results can vary. Yugioh is probably the best one, but I'm running Dweller for now. One, because I don't have 106, so I haven't really been able to test it out too much in an actual duel. But also, you know, graveyard heavy format. Orcus, Striker, Dweller's just good in general. And then Totally Awesome, because Dropsies is a level 2 Aqua. This card is going up in price. So another thing is, since Toad's going up in price, a cheaper option would be 106. 106 is $4. So instead of making Toad, you could run Dweller and 106 and just use Roxy's to make them. But luckily I got Toad when I was cheap. So what Toad does, when your opponent activates a card effect, you can destroy or send to the graveyard? I think it's sent to the graveyard, right? Yeah, send one Aqua type monster from your hand or field to the graveyard. Most of the time this is going to be Toad itself, but if you happen to have an extra Dropsies, obviously you can send that. Negate the activation of that card, and then if you want to, you can set it to your side of the field. Then if Toad's sent to the graveyard, you can add an Aqua from your graveyard to your hand. That most of the time is going to be your Dropsies, because then you can use that in Bow Wow and go into Battle Butler, which I'll show you in a combo video that I plan on doing probably within the next couple of episodes. So yeah, but like I said, if you are running a budget version, instead of Toad, you can always go 106. Then for the Link monsters, you run 2 copies of Prankit's Dodo Doodle Doo, 2 copies of Prankit's Bow Wow Bark, 1 Unicorn, 1 Roaster, 1 Avermax, and 1 Borload. So how do we want to do this? Let's start with our Dodo Doodle Doo. So what Dodo does, 2 Prankit's monsters. These are both 2 Prankit's monsters, similar to Rocket Ride and Weather Watcher. When this card's link summon, you can add 1 Prankit's spell or trap from your deck to your hand. Most of the time, you're going to search either the fusion spell or the field spell. However, sometimes searching the trap card does come up. Then you can tribute this card, add 2 Prankit's cards with different names that are not Prankit's Link monsters from your graveyard to your hand. This is good if you need a Rocket Ride and you have already exhausted your 2, if you choose to run 2 or even 1, so you can get that back. Plus, you can also use it just to combo extend in general. The main combo allows me to just add this and a fusion spell from my graveyard, which is pretty nice, and it definitely comes up. So Bow Wow Bark is Dodo Doodle Doo for your opponent's turn. You contribute it, add 2, quick effect, add 2 Prankit's cards with different names from your graveyard to your hand. The difference is, though, because this card is tributed, or when it is, by its effect, Prank Kids cards you control cannot be destroyed by card effect, which obviously is insanely valuable, especially if they decide to, they just want to Cerberus something that you have on field. That, maybe you can't get to Butler. So, very good. It does come up a lot, to be honest. If it said non-targeting and not destroy, that'd be better, but, it is what it is. I'll take it. Oh, also, any monster he points to, Prank Kids monster gains 1,000 attack. So you combine these two, this is already 3k, boom, 4k easy, get 2 of these out. This is a 5k beat stick, which is what I use Bow for most of the time. And then Nightmare Unicorn, this is utility. I would also recommend running Nightmare Phoenix. I run Nightmare Unicorn because I don't go up against too many floodgates nowadays, like unless you're going against Subterror and Draco, in which you have a pretty decent matchup anyways because of having access to Roaster, plus your side deck, not to mention. So I like to float cards because you can use this and go into Avermax when one way or another you would have to use 2 Prank Kids monsters, so I figured I might as well beef it up. Plus then, the drill. So this is pure utility. You can replace it with Phoenix or Cerberus if you have one of those, or Griffin. I don't use Griffin anymore because Sork is out, but there's still ways that you can use Griffin. One Prank Kids Ripmore and Roaster. This is Harpy's Feather Duster, which, as you know, is banned. So if that tells you anything about this card is absolutely insane. 3,000 attack, link 4, 2+ Prank Kids monster, which is nice. So you only need to use 2 Prank Kids link monsters at the most. So Rocket Ride gets you to this easy. Quick effect, destroy all spell and trap cards your opponent controls, and then if, similar to Butler, if your opponent's card sends it to the graveyard, unlike Butler where you get to special summon, honestly, I think, in my opinion, this is even better because you can add any card in your graveyard to your hand. Hand trap, 1 for 1, which is probably one of my favorite adds. Reasoning, instant fusion, which is the best ad because then next turn you have no cards, you have instant fusion, Rocket Ride, full combo, and then you're back at it again. So this card is a must. However, it is one of, you're not really gonna ever use 2. I've never run into a situation where I could use 2, and even if I could have used 2, I would have lost anyways. So 1 Borload, 1 Avermax. I run Avermax just because I was on a little bit of a budget. I also decided to sell my Boil Sword before Battles of Legend Heroes Revenge came out, thinking that it was going to be 20 bucks. It's 30 bucks, so it's not that bad. But like I said, if you're a budget player, you can run this. If you have Boil Sword, I would probably run Boil Sword. This is really easy to make. You can use Unicorn, you can use 2 Prank Kids Link monsters. Then Borlo Dragon, just for utility. It comes up. You don't use them a lot. You're definitely not going to make them every game, but you're going to make him at some point, and you're going to need him. So that is it for our extra deck. Like I said, you have any suggestions, feel free to comment down below. Pretty sure I mentioned this, but you can use Thousand Eyes Restrict and then Link Karibo just to get it out of your extra monster zone and provide further disruption. Plus, that's not including the Invoke variant. So let's move on to our side deck. Alright, so last but not least, moving on to our side deck, we're going to start with our traps. I run 3 copies of Red Reboot. I feel this is still necessary, even though people, don't choose to run it. Draco's a thing. Striker still a thing because they have 3 Solemn Judgments now. Altergeist is still a thing because they have Sangan and now Mirage. Orcus is still a thing. Salamandrate's still a thing. Basically, Subterrors are still a thing. Anything that runs trap cards is still here. Trap cards are not gone, no matter how relevant you may or may not think that they are. So Red Reboot is definitely something that you need to have available, at least in my opinion. I may or may not catch slack for it, but it is what it is. I run 2 copies of Artifact Sanctum. I find 2 does the work. 2 does what it needs to do. Plus then you're not drawing through, so it's not a brick. However, if you want to run 3, I also run, you know, the artifact engine of Scythe and 3 Lancia, so you could always take out 1 Lancia for a second Sanctum. But then that's it for our traps. For our spells in the side, I run 3 copies of Twin Twisters. Yes, I know they're all different rarities. Yes, it also bothers me too. But, you know, Twin Twisters is just something, personally for me, similar to Red Reboot, you just have to have, because spell traps are so prevalent, and this also takes care of spells. Striker, Pendulum, I could go on and on and on. But I'm not going to, just for, you know, sake of time. This video is already probably long enough. Then we have 3 copies of Winged Dragon Raw Sphere Mode. This takes care of Danger Thunder. This takes care of, you know, Crusadia Thunder. This takes care of Pendulums, basically anything that just wants to put out a big board. This deals with, and it deals with really easy. And personally, I like it over Super Poly because then I don't have to discard a card when you really need cards in your hand for this deck. And then, you know, on top of that, you don't really need your normal summon. So I feel like overall with this, you just get like pluses out of it. Then for your artifacts, I run 1 Scythe, 3 Lancia. You don't need more than 1 Scythe, in my experience. And 3 Lancia just because these cards shut down your opponent. So next turn you go in, you kill him. And then you can revive this off of Battle Butler if it's in your grave. You know, that's just something you can do. But yeah, so that's going to be it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you got as much utility out of it as you can. If you have any suggestions as to what to do with the deck, please leave it down below. I'm always wanting to improve this deck, as well as, you know, if you have any suggestions for videos, feel free to leave that as well. I want to give one more thank you to our subscribers and to our viewers, and yeah, let's try to make that, you know, 100 by the end of the month. But no, I really do appreciate it though. Thank you. And as always, like, subscribe, notification bell. Peace.